Patrick Vallance, according to the Telegraph, has £600,000 shareholding in the firm contracted to develop vaccines. Well, in a firm contracted to develop vaccines, so this is GlaxoSmithKline.
One of the big vaccine providers working with the government and also working with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so basically, Patrick Vallance in the past has already cashed in more than apparently £5 million worth of shares from vaccine mogul GSK, GlaxoSmithKline. We put the logo there. Only fitting, and everywhere Sir Patrick goes, that logo should follow him, because that's exactly who he's representing. But let's look at some of the details of this bombshell report, really, by the Telegraph here. So they're saying, and this is from a senior Tory MP who spoke to the Telegraph, the policy of this government is to try to suppress COVID-19 at every opportunity until we get a vaccine. So he's really hinting at the conflict of interest here. But he goes on, he says that makes this more likely that a vaccine will be prioritized by the government. And he happens to be holding shares in one of the leading companies that are developing it. So he's basically saying here that this is a potential conflict of interest. Some might say it's more than potential, Mike, that it is actually a conflict of interest. But the report goes on just to detail here. If he is making decisions on vaccines and advising the government on them, then he either needs to divest himself of the shares or make a declaration every time he touches on the subject. And again, Sir Patrick is the chief scientific advisor to the government. And this source goes on to say, in the Commons, every time MPs raise an issue in which there is a registered interest, they have to declare it. Every time Sir Patrick is on TV talking about vaccines or not on TV, he should put it on the table. So I don't think it's any more clear than that in terms of the case, Mike.
Well, it's clearly a conflict of interest. The government, however, said it's not a conflict of interest because he's not making commercial decisions about the vaccine or a potential vaccine. But of course, what he's doing is he is a market maker. He is producing a market for a vaccine which doesn't exist at the moment. There is no demand for the vaccine other than the government's decision to create a demand for that vaccine through their policy, and that policy is being made by this man, or at least he is contributing to making that policy. So it's a clear conflict of interest no matter what the government says.
I think it's very disingenuous of them to even make that statement. Could they have made that statement like 20 or 30 years ago?
Oh, they would have tried, but I suspect they would have had quite a bit more criticism than they have for making it.
They would have been torn to pieces by the press probably, but the rules have changed in 2020, and with the succession of these last governments, they become more and more corporatized. So conflicts of interest don't seem to exist. But the fact of the matter is, Mike, as you pointed out, Sir Patrick Vallance, Chris Whitty, these two gentlemen that are deeply, deeply ensconced in the pharmaceutical industry for their whole careers, okay, they are integral in making decisions that are going to determine government policy on everything from lockdowns, from test and trace, and all the way to the rollout of vaccines. So to say that there is no conflict of interest, I just don't buy that.
Indeed, but now of course the conflicts of interest in general go much broader than this, because as we know, Imperial College, for example, absolutely key to pushing forward with this lockdown policy and key to pushing forward with this with the drive towards vaccines as well, receives a significant amount of money from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, so they also have a vested interest in pushing forward with the vaccine policy, as opposed to any other type of approach to this problem. So everywhere we look, admittedly, Imperial College not operating within the government, whereas Patrick Vallance is, but nonetheless, they have been helping to guide this policy from the beginning,
advising the government
with absolute vested interests in doing so.
And we're not even talking about the Wellcome Trust and some of these other organizations that are absolutely integral in this whole operation with the government, and who have funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from the pharmaceutical industry directly. So let's look at these two gentlemen here. This was at their press conference, Mike. Again, you see the GSK logo there with Sir Patrick.
I think Patrick Vallance isn't chuckling anymore. They were chuckling a bit on Monday, but not anymore.
More on the chuckling in a second, but so just to reiterate, Sir Patrick Vallance, Chief Scientific Officer, former head of GlaxoSmithKline Research, major shareholder in GSK, and Chris Whitty, chief medical officer, already in the pocket after being awarded 31 million by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Admittedly, this was for a research project. It wasn't money directly put into the bank account of Chris Whitty.
Well, indirectly, but he still got a salary as a result of that.
A major beneficiary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also an interim board member, former, we're not sure or not, but apparently former at least interim board member of CEPI. This is the vaccine coalition funded by Gates as well. So again, Chris Whitty is right at the hub of the big pharma transnational pharmaceutical vaccine rollout with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So no questions there in terms of, so they're saying, please, you need to take our vaccine when it comes out in the spring. And this was really the subtext of the whole presentation that they gave on Monday, as well as talking about various pharmaceutical products that are on the market. Again, I don't know if they were just selling product or if they were, advising the public on public health. It's very difficult to see. But it doesn't end there, Mike. We've also have the head of the government's COVID-19 vaccine task force. This is Kate Bingham. She's also very involved in the industry, on the board of the DF Investment Committee. This is a committee that's dealing with investment and the pharmaceutical industry, created by 6 of the biggest firms, including GSK, Eli Lilly, Pfizer, and others there. So everywhere we look in terms of government, Mike, we see all of these people that have very tight relationships with the pharmaceutical industries who are going to benefit massively if there's some kind of massive rollout pushed by governments globally for a COVID-19 vaccine. And no one's asking the question, why do we need a universal COVID-19 vaccine when COVID-19, more and more seems to not pose the threat that it was sold to the public as last spring?
I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Patrick, but it seems to me that if you've got 2 of the key advisors to government, 2 of the key drivers, and we'll look at a photograph a little later that suggests that Chris Whitty is more than just a driver of this policy. If those 2 key voices have got vested interests in pursuing a particular policy direction, which it could be shown perhaps resulted in unnecessary deaths, I think there's personal liability there. They've got questions to answer, and perhaps it requires criminal investigation at that point.
Absolutely, as well if there's a conflict of interest. That's on top as
Yes.
well. Lockdown policies, we could make an argument of what you just said.
Yes.
In terms of lockdown deaths. But what is this? What's the main point here? All of the conversation from government, from the scientific advisors to the government, is all about vaccines. The only way we can achieve herd immunity is through a vaccine. So not naturally, but synthetically through this product that the industries that they represent, the interests they represent, is going to